week 2 of the fantasy football season, and here's the top 36 running backs. I'm ranking this week the first guy, Christian McCaffrey of the San Francisco 49ers. So Christian McCaffrey, what a week it was last week for him. He had a big 65-yard run touchdown, and this week he's got a good matchup with the Los Angeles Rams, where they really can't stop anyone on defense. I know they won their week 1 matchup, but McCaffrey, in my opinion, is the best running back in pro football and fantasy football. And this week here, I have him at once again in a high-powered offense and making plays. Number 2, Saquon Barkley of the New York Giants. I know Saquon Barkley and the Giants, they got shut out in week 1, but I expect a bounce back here at an Arizona Cardinal team that really can't stop anyone. We saw Brian Robinson rush for a good ball game versus that Arizona defense, and I think Saquon bounces back and the Giants bounce back, at least play a decent ball game. So right now I got Barkley at 2. Number 3, Austin Ekeler, Los Angeles Chargers. I know Wednesday Austin Ekeler, he didn't practice in the ball game, so obviously if Ekeler, he don't play, and then he's not going to be on this list. But if Ekeler does come through and play on Sunday, he's a top 4, top 5 running back minimum each and every week here is Ekeler. So right now with a pretty good matchup at the Tennessee Titans, who could do it all out of the backfield, catching the football, running in between the tackles. And if he's out, Joshua Kelly, if he's still available on your waiver wire, could be a running back for a couple weeks or even for a week fill-in that can help fantasy owners in a big way. Number 4, Nick Chubb of the Cleveland Browns. So Nick Chubb once again got off to a good start to start the season here versus the Cincinnati Bengals. And now Monday Night Football, this Brown team goes to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And Nick Chubb, we know he's a talented running back. The only thing with him, year after year, it seems like the backup running back gets some good work. And we saw Jerome Ford get good work, but this week here, Pittsburgh, I think he has a good ball game. We saw McCaffrey dominate them in week 1. And Nick Chubb, every week, he's a top 5, top 7 guy at worst at the position. Number 5, Derrick Henry of the Tennessee Titans. But Henry, he still looked quick. He still had his burst. He was still going out there running guys over as well. And this week here in the home opener versus the Chargers defense, that they don't tackle as that great and give up a lot of points. I think Henry could have a ball game with 100 yards in this one and possibly find the end zone. Number 6, Bijan Robinson of the Atlanta Falcons. So Robinson, what a debut it was for him. The only down thing for me is he only got 10 carries in the ball game and 5 catches as well, with Tyler Algier taking 2 goal line touchdowns in that ball game. So right now, Bijan Robinson, we know is a great talent. We saw it in week 1, obviously with that juke move, broken ankle, and found the end zone on a bubble screen kind of. And right here, it's a good matchup versus the Green Bay Packers, where I think they could have success. And we saw the Bears running the football with Khalil Herbert and Roscoe Johnson put up some decent numbers. So Bijan's a great talent. I just hope he gets more carries. And I got him at 6 this week. 7, Tony Pollard of the Dallas Cowboys. I know on paper it's a tough matchup versus the New York Jets, but this Dallas Cowboy offensive line, one of the better lines in the league, and they could open running room here for Tony Pollard, and he's also a solid wide receiver out of the backfield. So I think Pollard, even in a tough matchup, could put up some numbers. And in week 1, not the greatest of matchups as well. He did find the end zone twice. So this week, home opener for the Cowboys, even in a tough matchup, I got him at 7, 8, Josh Jacobs of the Las Vegas Raiders. So Josh Jacobs, he didn't do much in week 1, and obviously working off the rust a little bit after he held out for the majority of training camp was Jacobs. And this week on paper, I know it's a tough matchup at Buffalo, but workload obviously in the scheme over there for this Las Vegas Raider team, I think Josh Jacobs could have a good ball game in this one. I know it's a tough matchup, but we saw last season, even in tough matchups, Josh Jacobs break away with some big ball games. So right now, I think he bounces back after a 7-point fantasy day right here in week 2. Number 9, Ramondre Stevenson of the New England Patriots. So Ramondre Stevenson, one of the best receiving backs in all pro football here. And this week, he's got a soft matchup versus the Dolphins. That got shredded on the ground by the Chargers in week 1, where the Chargers ran for over 150 yards in that one. So Stevenson, I know Ezekiel Elliott is there, but he's still getting his snaps. He's still going to get the receptions, and he's still going to make some plays. So this week here, I like Stevenson at 9. Number 10, Aaron Jones of the Green Bay Packers. So just like Austin Ekeler, Aaron Jones, he missed practice with a hamstring injury on Wednesday. We don't know 100% if he's going to play, but if he does play, he's a top 10 running back at the Atlanta Falcons, where their run defense isn't all that great. And it's an indoor game as well, which is always a plus, obviously. So if Jones can't go, Corey Dillon, he'd be the starting running back in this game. And I think he would be. Top 24 option is Dillon. If Jones is out, number 11, Joe Mixon of the Cincinnati Bengals. So Joe Mixon, I think his better years are behind him, obviously. But right now, he's still the number 1 alpha back over there for for the Cincinnati Bengal team. No one's really eating into his workload. And Mixon here in a division ball game versus the Baltimore Ravens, I could see him pop off a decent ball game where he's had some good success throughout his career versus the division rival Baltimore Ravens. So right now the Cincinnati team came out flat. They looked horrible in week 1, but I think everyone gets on board in this one and plays a better ball game. So Mixon at 11, number 12 Travis Etienne of the Jacksonville Jaguars. So we did see Tank Bigsby get a lot of work in this ball game for a rookie. It wasn't a 50-50 split, but he did get about 35-40% of the snaps. But Etienne, he found the end zone lane in the game. This is a dynamic offense, no doubt about it, over there for this Jacksonville Jaguar team. And Etienne here in a pretty good matchup where we saw David Montgomery and Gibbs run the football well versus the Chiefs here. I think Etienne's a top 12 option this week. Number 13, Dameon Pierce of the Houston Texans. So Dameon Pierce week 1 was a quiet one. It was a tough ball game, obviously, at the Baltimore Ravens. But this week here versus a little softer of a defense in the Indianapolis Colts, Dameon Pierce, he's going to get the full workload, obviously. He's been a solid back over the last season since he came into the league. And this week here, I think he bounces back with even a better ball game as Pierce. And I got him at 13, number 14, Breece Hall of the New York Jets. Obviously, Breece Hall, he might be a little up there on this list here with a tough matchup at the Dallas Cowboys. But Breece Hall, he's got breakaway speed. He should have had a 95-yard touchdown in that ball game in week 1. But Gary Wilson didn't finish off the block down the field, and they ended up with an 84-yard run on that play. But Breece Hall is a great talent. If he could get majority of the touches, this guy could be a 100-yard rusher per game, in my opinion here, where this Jet team now has to rely on the run more than ever. So this week, even with a tough matchup at the Cowboys, I think the Jets, their game plan is going to be keep pounding the rock and obviously playing good defense. So Breece Hall, I still think, puts up good numbers. And I got him at 14, number 15, Jahmyr Gibbs of the Detroit Lions. So Jahmyr Gibbs, I know week 1 the workload was down, but reports are coming out now in week 2 that the workload's going to be up there here for Jahmyr Gibbs. So he's got a good matchup versus Seattle Seahawks. We just saw Kyren Williams run for a good game for them, and Cam Akers find the end zone as well in that ball game for the Angeles Ram team. So right here, Gibbs, he had 6 yards per carry in week 1. Obviously, the full workload wasn't there. David Montgomery got a majority of it. But you could tell the burst and the breakaway speed this kid has, and he's a home run hitter. So this week, if he gets more touches, I think he could put up good numbers. And I got him at 15, 16, Javonte Williams of the Denver Broncos. So Williams in his season debut, he looked pretty good in week 1 for a guy coming off the ACL as well, like Breece Hall. He didn't have a Breece Hall type of ball game, but he still had a solid ball game, in my opinion, Javonte Williams. Him and P. Ryan were back there in the backfield. And this week, a pretty good matchup versus the Washington Commanders, where James Conner came off a double-digit fantasy day. So Javonte Williams, he looks healthy so far in the early going. I know he's not getting that full 80%, 90% of the workload, but still, I think he's a solid number 2 running back for owners this week. And I got him at 16, 17, James Cook of the Buffalo Bills. So I thought James Cook looked good in week 1 here. He caught some passes out of the backfield. He had a couple decent runs in between the tackles. And that obviously was versus a very tough Jet defense. But now he's got a better matchup here versus the Vegas Raiders as a number 2 option and a guy who could score 12 to 15 fantasy points. I got him at 17, 18, James Conner of the Arizona Cardinals. I know Conner's banged up and he missed practice on Wednesday, but if he does play in this ball game, he's a number 2 running back as well. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. He can run in between the tackles. And this Cardinal team, if they want to keep games close, obviously, they're going to try to run the ball a lot and chew up that clock as well. So right now, good matchup versus the Giants on paper. We saw Tony Pollard have a good ball game, scoring twice in that one and getting 5 yards a carry. And I think Conner could be a decent option this week in the home opener for Arizona if he plays at 18, 19, Kenneth Walker of the Seattle Seahawks. So Kenneth Walker, a lot of people were worried about his workload going into week 1. With Zach Charbonnet was drafted in the 2nd round of the NFL draft going into the season by the Seattle Seahawks team. But Kenneth Walker got his workload. He looked explosive. I know the numbers weren't all that great, but this week here on a fast track and a defense that isn't all that great against the run here, I think Walker has a good ball game at Detroit. And he's a nice number 2 running back as well. So I got him at 19, 20, Jamal Williams of the New Orleans Saints. So Williams, he didn't have a good game at all really in week 1. Where it was just a grinded out, tough type of ball game where both offenses didn't do much there besides Chris Olave in week 1 and Derrick Henry in the Titans-Saints game. But week 2 here, at Carolina Panthers. First game of the doubleheader Monday Night Football. And Jamal Williams, we know he's a physical back. We know he's in between the tackles, not really going to catch the ball, obviously, out of the backfield. But he was good in the red zone and obviously good within 5 yards of finding the end zone. So in this ball game at Carolina, I could see 40, 50 yards in this one and finding the end zone. And I got him at 2021, David Montgomery of the Detroit Lions. So David Montgomery, like I mentioned, he got the majority of the workload in week one, and they beat the Kansas City Chiefs over there in Arrowhead, so it was a good victory. Montgomery looked good, but Montgomery, he does that throughout his career. He'll have a good game, and then he'll follow with 2 bad games and then come back with a good one. So this week here, I see him falling off a little bit, the numbers for Montgomery. Jahmyr Gibbs is going to get more of a workload. Gibbs quickly could be taking over this backfield within the next few weeks. You see the explosiveness, you see the vision, and you see the power he runs with as well. But right now, David Montgomery, he's a factor in the backfield after a nice week one. And right here is a flex option number 2 back. I think he's decent. Here in week 2 versus the Seahawks in a potential shootout. 22, Rachaad White of the Tampa Bay Bucks. So right here, week 1, he didn't do much as Rachaad White. But week 2, a good matchup versus the Bears, who just got shredded by Aaron Jones in that ball game. So Tampa Bay, it's their home opener. Offense ran pretty smoothly, I believe, in that one in week 1. Mike Evans looked good. Baker was confident. Led the team down and won the ball game. And I think Rachaad White bounces back in this one, and he's one of the better receiving backs in the league. So this week with a pretty good matchup versus Chicago, and Tampa Bay feeling a little better this week here after winning in week 1. I got him at 22, 23, DeAndre Swift of the Philadelphia Eagles. So yes, Kenneth Gainwell, he was the main man in the backfield in week 1 for the Eagles at the Patriots, but now he's out with a rib injury here tonight on Thursday Night Football. So I'm assuming DeAndre Swift's going to get a lot of run. Rashad Penny, we know he's more of an in-between-the-tackles guy, but he was inactive as a healthy scratch in week 1. But anyway, now with Gainwell out and a good matchup versus Minnesota, where Swift's obviously familiar with the Vikings defense, where he's versed them twice a year in his Detroit Lion days. I think in this one, he could be a number 2 running back. He could catch 4 or 5 balls out of the backfield, possibly find the end zone. And I got him at 23, 24, Gus Edwards of the Baltimore Ravens. So we know J.K. Dobbins out for the season with a torn Achilles. We know him and Justice Hill pretty much split after Dobbins went out, and Hill got 2 goal line touchdowns. But Gus Edwards, he's an in-between-the-tackles more of a running back, and a guy that knows the system very well over there in Baltimore. So I think as a number 2 running back flex option, he could be solid this week at the Cincinnati Bengals. And like I said, when healthy, Gus Edwards is a solid running back in my opinion. So this week, where he's at least going to get 12, 15 touches, I believe, he can make the most out of it, even if it's a split. And I got him in 24, 25, Alexander Mattison at the Minnesota Vikings. So I'm down on Madison this week. Last week, a touchdown saved his day, where he pretty much didn't do anything in that ball game as Madison if he didn't get the touchdown versus the Tampa Bay Bucks. So right now, tough matchup for Philly tonight here, Thursday Night Football. Going to be a long one for them, I believe. Even though we saw Stevenson have success, I don't think Madison's that great of a receiver out of the backfield. And I'm 100% not sold. The Vikings are sold on him as their every down back as well. And also their pass-first offense, obviously led by Cousins, with Justin Jefferson and Hawkinson as their main guys over there in the passing game. So right now, I got him at 25, 26, Miles Sanders of the Carolina Panthers. I'm not big on Miles Sanders at all coming into the season. And week 1, a touchdown bailed him out as well, where he would have finished the day with 4 or 5 fantasy points, most likely in that one. And this week here, they're versing a stout defense in the New Orleans Saints. And also, I think the same team, they're going to shut down the run and have Bryce Young try to beat them in this ball game. Because if the Saints get off to a 2-0 start, it'll be good for them. And Miles Sanders, he's just been an inconsistent back for seasons now. So right now, with all these factors, tough matchup, and a guy who's pretty much touchdown dependent to have a good fantasy day, I got him at 26, 27, Najee Harris of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Last week, I had him at 22, and a few people thought that was low for Najee Harris, but he's not an explosive running back. I know he's getting workload, but he's not really catching the ball out of the backfield at all. And he's been a touchdown-dependent running back as well. Last season, a few ball games, he scored touchdowns, would save this fantasy day to get to double digits. And this week, at the Cincinnati Bengals, in a grinded-out type of ball game, I don't see Harris doing much. It's possible he could break out and run in this one, but with Jalen Warren creeping over there as the backup running back, and Harris over the last season and change now really hasn't done much for fantasy owners besides his rookie year. I have no confidence in him, and I have him at 27, 28, Brian Robinson of the Washington Commanders. So Brian Robinson last week had a solid week. We know he's the in-between the tackles running back. And Antonio Gibson, he didn't do anything at all in that week 1 game. So maybe Robinson's getting more traction on the job, even though I think it's going to be a game script type of RB room over there for this Washington Commander team. But Robinson's a physical back. He can run in between the tackles. And over here at Denver, if you want to win this ball game, you got to play some smash mouth football. And I think Robinson can do that a little bit in this ball game. And I got him 28 even in the tough matchup. 29 Isaiah Pacheco of the Kansas City Chiefs. So Pacheco week 1 he salvaged with 9.40 fantasy points with a couple low yardage catches in that ball game towards the end. So right now Jacksonville Jaguars, they're going to. They shut down the run in week 1, even though we know the run game over there in Indianapolis isn't good at all with Deion Jackson. But Zach Moore should be back in this ball game. But anyway, Pacheco still working his way back from the knee injury. Travis Kelce most likely going to be back in this game, so they're going to pass a little bit more in this one. And Pacheco, I think his ceiling pretty much is 12, 15 points at most, but I don't see him getting it this week in a shootout type of game with a lot of passing in Jacksonville. Number 30, Khalil Herbert of the Chicago Bears. So the Bears, they got 3 running backs over there in the backfield. Foreman, Herbert, and Roschon Johnson, who had the best fantasy day, even though he scored a touchdown in garbage time in week 1. But Herbert, he could catch the ball out of the backfield. He's a good athlete. He's got breakaway speed, but it's definitely a tough matchup at the Tampa Bay Bucks. That shut down, for the most part, Alexander Mattison. So right now, if you want to use him as a flex option or desperate deeper league number 2 option, I think you could go with Herbert. But this week, I'm not having high expectations for him. Number 31, Tyler Algier of the Atlanta Falcons. Algier, he had a great week 1 with 2 touchdowns and 60 total yards in that ball game versus the Carolina Panthers. But now the Packers are coming to town. They're pretty stout run defense. And right here, I think Bijan Robinson's going to get more of a workload in this one. Algier looked good, no doubt about it. But you're not drafting Bijan Robinson early in the first round where you're not going to use him as much. So right now, Bijan looked good. Algier last season, we know, rushed for 1,000 yards, and last week 2 touchdowns. But with a tough matchup, and Robinson, if he could get a hot hand early, I don't see Algier doing what he did last week. And I got him at 31-32, Kyren Williams of Los Angeles Rams. So obviously a tough matchup versus the Niners, one of the best defenses in the league here. And Kyren Williams, I think he'll be the man over there. Last season, towards the end of the year, they wanted him to be the man, but with injuries and not showing much, he couldn't get things going. But in week 1, he had 52 rushing yards and found the end zone twice. Getting a lot of goal line work as well was Kyren Williams. So he's a better receiver out of the backfield. He runs more routes than Cam Akers. And Cam Akers, he had an awful ball game last week. 22 carries for 29 yards and a touchdown. So this week here, Kyren Williams, even in a tough matchup, he does crack the top 36 at 32. 33, Zach Moss of the Indianapolis Colts. So right now, Zach Moss, he should be back in this ball game, coming off the broken forearm. And I think he's going to be the starter and get majority of the touches after Deion Jackson fumbled twice and he looked horrible. And Eric Cole went on the injured reserve as well for this Indianapolis Colts team. So right now, desperation play. He's going to be a starter, Zach Moss. And at Houston, I think he could make a few plays, but I'm not counting on it 100% as well. 34, Raheem Mostert of the Dolphins. So Mostert, he's banged up with a knee injury a little bit, but reports are coming out. It was a maintenance day on Wednesday, so he's going to play in this ball game. And right here, this is a pass-first offense over there for this Miami Dolphin team, where they're not going to run a lot. They're just going to run to keep teams off balance. But we know it's a pass-first, quick running gun offense, quick slants, obviously, quick deep balls, and quick release from Tua. So right here, this offense is passing. Mostert, he's going to get a few carries here and there. He's going to get 12, 15 touches. But not really a guy in New England who's got a pretty solid run defense that pretty much shut down the Eagles' running game for the most part. So I got him at 34, 35, Dalvin Cook of the New York Jets. So right now, I like Breece Hall way more in the backfield than Dalvin Cook. Cook had a couple decent runs in week 1 versus the Buffalo Bills. But right here, week 2 with the Dallas Cowboys could be tough sledding for him. And let's say Breece Hall gets going early and often, I think the Jets are going to stick with the hot hand in that ball game. And like I said, Dalvin Cook, he did have a few runs, but still didn't put up many fantasy points at all in that ball game versus the Buffalo Bills in week 1. So right here with a tough matchup, and Breece Hall, the better running back in my opinion, and probably most people's opinion here. He's a running back. I got a 35 and the 36 and final running back I'm ranking this week here is Justice Hill of the Baltimore Ravens. So Justice Hill, he had 2 touchdowns after J.K. Dobbins went down for this Baltimore Raven team. But I think it's still going to be more of a Gus Edwards backfield. But we definitely got to wait and see how it plays out as well over there in Baltimore. So right now, he's a good receiver out of the backfield. I'll give him that. But it was funny to see him get the 2 goal line stampers when Gus Edwards is more the physical and in between the tackles back. But right now, Justice Hill, maybe in deeper leagues, you start him as a flex, or 12-team leagues with 3 receivers or whatever the case may be. But this week, I'm tampering the expectations at Cincinnati, and I got him at 36. So that's the top 36 running backs I'm ranking here for week 2 of the fantasy football season.